Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom, the show where we dive into the latest insights on health, wellness, and the curious ways we humans manage to complicate both. I'm Ethan, the guy who'd rather watch squirrels in the yard than stare at his phone.
And I'm Alara, who would love nothing more than to see a generation of kids put the phone down, pick a flower, then maybe think about how that flower relates to the cosmic order of the universe, only after noticing how calm they feel without staring at a screen. Anyway, I'm thrilled you could join us for another enlightening chat.
That's right. Today we're talking about one of the most pressing issues of our time, too much screen time, because, heaven forbid, a child should ever be left alone with their own thoughts for more than 5 seconds.
I'm old enough to remember that being bored was once a rite of passage. Boredom led to creativity, some questionable sock puppets, and that remarkable moment of transformation when a cardboard box became a rocket ship.
Now that same cardboard box is probably used to ship you yet another digital device, and then you end up turning it on because that's the new normal, right?
Well, apparently new normal means an 8 to 12-year-old can rack up 4 to 6 hours a day glued to an electronic screen, while teenagers push it up to 9 hours. Why? Because personal growth clearly happens by watching cat videos in 4K and debating which social media app is the greatest time vacuum.
9 hours? That's a full workday, plus a mandatory coffee break, minus the coffee. It's essentially more screen time than some adults get at their desk jobs, which is a little frightening. Meanwhile, the kids themselves are under the impression that's a brilliant plan.
It might be brilliant if the goal is to undermine quality sleep, sabotage emotional stability, and drive up hyperactivity. However, for parents, it's the kind of brilliance that usually comes with migraines and wild fantasies of smashing every screen in the house with a sledgehammer.
That's the short version of what the studies are telling us. And from what I gather, there's a positive feedback loop in place, except it's not positive in the sense of being good news. It's positive as in, once you start, it feeds into itself.
Think of it like a chain reaction. A child gets more screen time, and before you know it, they're too wired to sleep. So the next day they're tired, so they turn back to the screen to stay entertained, or because they're too frazzled to do anything else. It's a perpetual cycle, like a hamster wheel, but with Netflix.
I suspect hamsters might be envious of our children's digital stamina, so these studies indicate it's not just about losing sleep. It's also about being more prone to anxiety, hyperactive attention issues, even depression. Am I hearing that right?
Yes, indeed. One of these studies from China and Canada basically spelled out that for preschoolers, these are 3 to 6-year-olds, excessive screen time correlated with poor sleep, which correlated with all sorts of emotional and behavioral hiccups. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd like to see my 4-year-old audience members focusing on shapes and finger paints rather than liking posts on social media.
True. Just imagine a preschooler scrolling through a feed about crayons. Then you realize they're also staying up late to do that. And the next morning, they're bouncing off the walls. It does make you question the logic of giving children devices that were never truly designed with their long-term well-being in mind.
Yes, especially when digital media is engineered to hold our attention in a gambling-style environment. It's that dopamine rush. The same reason some adults keep pulling the handle on a slot machine is the same reason kids can't put down a smartphone. They're waiting for that unpredictable reward. Maybe a new notification, or maybe more hearts on the dancing puppy video they uploaded.
Makes sense. In adult terms, that's how we get stuck in an endless doom scroll. We keep going because maybe, just maybe, the next post is something that'll turn our day around. But for kids, their developing brains are so vulnerable. Adults might, hopefully, look up once in a while and realize the laundry's not done. Kids might just keep scrolling until next year.
Until they're old enough to realize they smell like unwashed socks. And by then, their attention span might be no longer than a goldfish's. The research indicates it's messing with academic performance, language skills, the ability to focus, everything. It's like we're raising a generation that's a bit cognitively scrambled.
Let's not forget the social anxiety angle. If you're on TikTok all night and ignoring your pillow, you'll be exhausted, plus psychologically a little on edge, especially if you think you're missing out on the number of likes your friends are getting. That's a mental game that, I'm sorry, no adolescent can truly handle well.
Adolescents can barely handle discovering they have a pimple. Adding a platform that tracks likes, followers, and who wore what better is a recipe for serious insecurity. Though to be fair, even adults get insecure about that. But at least we have the advantage of reflection, sometimes. Kids just see it as, I must keep up or I'm a loser. They don't see it as, oh, this social media format might be intrinsically flawed for my health.
It certainly wasn't in the marketing slogan. You never see, buy this phone and short-circuit your child's brain. But that's more or less what we're dealing with. Then we have the electromagnetic field exposure problem to top it off.
Yes, EMFs. The invisible culprit that might sound like science fiction, but is very real. Devices release EMFs that can interfere with your mitochondria, your cellular energy production. Of course, the damage is bigger on a child's developing system, and while that might sound like we're about to start wearing tinfoil hats, the science is compelling.
We're not advocating tinfoil hats, folks, but maybe we do need to unplug those Wi-Fi routers at night. Or, as Dr. Mercola suggests in his new bestseller, your guide to cellular health. Pay attention to the ways EMFs might be sabotaging your body's ability to function.
He really delves into how these signals increase calcium levels inside your cells, which sparks free radicals and oxidative stress, none of which is good if you cherish a calm, well-functioning body. If you're a growing child, it can wreak even more havoc.
So the big question, are we doomed to let kids just vanish into the digital realm? Or is there hope for reversing this trend? I see people talking about a digital detox. That phrase conjures an image of a child sweating in a corner, going through smartphone withdrawal. But maybe that's the reality for some families.
A digital detox can be a dramatic phrase, but the concept is sound. It means intentionally cutting down or cutting out screen time to let the brain readjust, like a reset button. Jonathan Haidt, a social psychologist from New York University, has a plan. He suggests no smartphones before high school. None. Zip. And definitely no social media until age 16. Then he also suggests making schools phone-free zones, so kids don't bury their heads in screens between classes. Finally, encouraging them to get out there in the real world, play, explore, do chores, have responsibilities, all that fun stuff we used to call childhood.
I get the sense that if you told a typical 10-year-old they can't have a phone until high school, they'd look at you as if you're an alien. But is it so outlandish? We used to survive just fine on talkative bus rides, or we'd read comic books if we were desperate for entertainment.
Right? Or we'd hit up the library. Wow, do libraries even exist in kids' minds anymore? I hope so. But that's the thing. It's the norm to see a 6-year-old glued to a tablet. People say, well, they're learning. It's an educational app. Sure, maybe it's Sesame Street teaching them the letter A. More often, it's a swirling carnival of flickering lights that cements the habit of staring at a screen.
And that's precisely why we can't just wave a magic wand. We need to be purposeful, start small. Ask your kid, how many hours do you think you can go without using your phone? Then hold them to it, gradually building up. Or identify which apps are biggest time suckers. Typically, that's short-form videos on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, or maybe gaming apps with never-ending levels.
Absolutely. Then you define the no-phone zones in your house. The dinner table is probably top of the list, and definitely the bedroom, especially at bedtime. If there's a device lighting up their pillow, say goodbye to healthy melatonin production, their body thinks it's daytime, so no wonder they have trouble sleeping.
Yes, and if they're not sleeping well, they definitely won't be waking up with the academic vigor we'd love to see, which loops us back to how screen time can sabotage a child's grades and language skills.
Let's face it, the bedtime routine for kids should be an ancient ritual of calm and rest, not an extended session of scrolling. So you remove devices from the room. Then you help them follow a consistent bedtime. After all, circadian rhythm likes consistency. And because they're not an adult with a 9 to 5, we have more control over their schedules, ideally.
True. If we keep them on a routine, if we ensure they get enough sun in the morning, and if we limit the screen-based artificial blue light at night, we'll probably see a much better mood. Fewer meltdowns, more focus, and maybe fewer pleas for social media.
Or at least more time to practice finger painting or read Dr. Seuss. And I imagine that's less stressful for the parents, too. A child who sleeps well is more likely to be a child who behaves well in the grocery store line. Everyone wins.
So here's a question. How much sleep should kids be getting? Because we toss these recommended hours around, but I don't remember them all exactly.
The National Sleep Foundation suggests for infants 4 to 12 months, they need 12 to 16 hours. That includes naps. Toddlers, 11 to 14 hours. Preschoolers, 10 to 13 hours. School-age children, 9 to 12 hours. Teens, 8 to 10 hours. After that, you're an adult, so good luck. Actually, we grown-ups should still aim for at least 7 hours, but that's a different conversation.
It's sobering to see those numbers when we know how many kids are probably not hitting those targets. If you're up late watching short-form videos or playing the latest addictive game, you're going to shave off hours of rest.
Exactly, and it's not just quantity but also quality. If you drift in and out of shallow sleep, that's not rejuvenating. Then come the next morning, your little one is less of a bright-eyed cherub and more of a moody gremlin. Multiply that by months and years, and you get bigger issues, long-term mental health struggles, stunted development, poor learning outcomes.
That's the path we want to avoid. So the big takeaway so far, minimize the device time, especially at night, to preserve that precious sleep. Encourage real-world experiences. Introduce them to the joys of building a paper airplane or reading an actual physical book. And maybe, just maybe, you get a child who doesn't start bouncing off the walls in the morning.
Yes, or a child who knows there's more to life than chasing likes on social media. Now, there's another piece here. Being a role model. There's no point telling our kids, put down your phone, Billy, if they see us, the parents, with eyes glued to a screen. That's like telling them to eat broccoli while we chow down on donuts in front of them.
Guilty as charged. There have been times I told my kids, no devices at the table, and then they catch me reading the news on my phone. That's a fail. So, if we're all in it together, we need to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Exactly. If parents drastically reduce their own phone usage at night, wrap up their work earlier, and refrain from texting at the dinner table, The child sees that as normal. And normalizing device-free zones is crucial to making that shift in the household.
We should also mention it's not about demonizing technology. It's about using it responsibly. We live in a digital world. There will be times we need it, but kids don't need to drown in it, particularly young kids whose brains are actively forming crucial neural connections.
Exactly. And that includes turning off the Wi-Fi at night, or at least enabling airplane mode. Anything to reduce those EMFs, especially near where the kids sleep. Let the body rest without that onslaught of electromagnetic interference. The idea is to create as healthy an environment as possible. That's what Dr. Mercola's new bestseller, Your Guide to Cellular Health, is all about. Understanding how these hidden factors, like EMFs, can gradually undermine your wellness if you're not paying attention.
Yes, he describes how these EMFs boost calcium levels in your cells, leading to free radical damage, oxidative stress, and overall cellular mayhem. If that's happening in an adult, it's unfortunate. If it's happening in a toddler, it's even more concerning. So part of the solution is definitely an environmental shift.
Right. And many of us might not even have realized that we can make simple changes. Keeping devices out of the bedroom, using wired connections instead of Wi-Fi where possible, turning off Bluetooth. Those are straightforward steps to reduce exposure. Add that to the digital detox we were talking about, and you have a powerful combination.
To me, the concept is that the child's day should revolve around real-world stimuli, real social interactions, physical movement, and healthy learning. The screen can be a small footnote, not the main event. Just because it's easy to hand them a tablet to keep them occupied doesn't mean it's the right move.
We get it, parents are busy. But if we want these children to grow into balanced, mentally healthy and physically healthy adults, then we can't let a tiny glass rectangle do the babysitting for us.
Now, speaking of children's well-being, let's circle back to the sleep piece, because that's one of the core issues. If they're using screens too much, their sleep suffers. I want to share some of these healthy sleep practices to put this all in perspective.
Let's do it, although I might slip in some comedic commentary, because that's what I do.
The first recommendation, keep the kids' room cool. People forget that. A child's body temperature has to drop at night to get good rest. That's typically between 60 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Not freezing, but on the cooler side.
That's probably the temperature range in an igloo, but I promise, your child will have better dreams about frolicking polar bears, and they'll actually fall asleep faster. Win-win. Next tip, make the room as dark as possible. No nightlights shaped like a disco ball, please.
Though, if the child insists on a slight glow to keep the boogeyman away, there are extremely dim or red-tone lights that might be less disruptive than the usual bright ones. But the principle still stands. Darkness helps that all-important melatonin do its job.
Absolutely. Another tip. Avoid big gulps of water right before bedtime. Less water, fewer midnight bathroom trips, and fewer times the child tries to renegotiate bedtimes by claiming thirst or bladder emergencies.
Yes, the classic "I need a drink of water, Dad" stalling tactic. We see you, kids. Next suggestion. Keep exercise earlier in the day, not right before bed. A bedtime wrestling match might sound like a fun father-child bonding moment, but it'll ramp up adrenaline. They'll be bouncing off the walls. Save the rough housing for after school.
Precisely. Then there's the question of the right mattress and pillow. Children can be pretty picky. A too firm or too soft mattress can mess with their posture and comfort. Then again, some might fall asleep on a hardwood floor if they're tired enough. But generally, a decent mattress helps with restful sleep.
I think it's also wise to figure out the right bedtime. If your child has to be up by 7 a.m. for school, letting them stay up until midnight playing games or watching videos is illogical. They need those 9 or more hours. So plan backward. If you need them up by 7, maybe lights out by 9 or so. Adjust for age, of course.
You make it sound so simple, but you'd be shocked how many folks just wing it. Suddenly it's 11 p.m., and the kid's on their 10th short-form video, and the parents are half asleep on the couch, oblivious. Then they wonder why the child's brain is on overdrive at midnight.
I suspect a big part of the problem is that parents themselves might be glued to social media or Netflix at the same time. Hard to keep track if you're also down the rabbit hole, which goes back to modeling good behavior.
Yes. If we set a household rule, no screens in the bedroom after 8 p.m., and everyone follows it, that's going to be a game changer. Sure, you'll have some initial revolt. But Mom, but Dad, they'll probably claim boredom or that their friends are all online. That's the point. Let them be bored. Maybe they'll discover a new hobby or read an actual book.
Reading, a radical concept, but apparently effective. People used to do it all the time, and that can help them unwind. A gentle bedtime story, something that doesn't overstimulate. Not an action-packed thriller that sets their heart racing.
If they want a thriller, they can wait until morning, preferably after a restful night. And of course, once they get that rest, they might have better behavior, less anxiety, improved ability to concentrate in school, maybe fewer hyperactive issues. It's like the entire day is transformed by that single shift.
And then they don't develop that cyclical pattern the studies warned about. The loop of more screen time leading to worse sleep, leading to more anxious moods, and so on. Instead, we get a virtuous cycle. Less screen time, better sleep, better mood, less reliance on the screen, and so forth.
and fewer tears for everyone. It's all connected, which is why Dr. Mercola's emphasis on cellular health is so relevant. EMFs aside, kids also need time to be physically active, get sunshine, and stay in sync with natural rhythms. It all starts at the cellular level.
Imagine the difference if a child's day included a walk outside, a bit of real-world exploration, a bedtime routine free of digital lights, and a consistent schedule. It's almost too logical. But we got so used to the new status quo that we forgot it can be done.
You say almost too logical, but let's be honest. Logic can be overshadowed by convenience. Everyone's busy. Parents have jobs, responsibilities, errands, and handing your kid a tablet can be an easy fix in the short term. But the long-term cost is enormous.
Agreed. So hopefully the conversation today gives families a nudge. Try the detox, see how your kids cope. They might resist at first, but once they discover the joys of, say, climbing a tree or building an elaborate pillow fort, they might never go back.
Yes, if only we can keep them from filming the entire pillow fort on a short-form video. Maybe let them film it once they're 16 and slightly more responsible. But until then, let them just enjoy it.
So, in summary, children these days are spending way too many hours on screens, which can lead to poor sleep, emotional troubles, academic decline, and various mental health challenges. We're also exposing them to EMFs. The solution is a digital detox, or at least severely restricted usage, particularly at night. Also, no smartphones for kids before high school, no social media until 16, phone-free schools, and definitely encourage them to live in the real world more than the digital one.
That's our plan. And in the process, we can raise a generation of kids who actually know what it's like to be bored, who see the outside world as a playground, and who get enough sleep to handle life's challenges without meltdown after meltdown.
It sounds ambitious, but I have faith in humanity, some days. Before we wrap up, let's not forget Dr. Mercola's new bestseller, Your Guide to Cellular Health. It goes deeper into how these hidden factors, like EMFs, can wreak havoc on our cells. If you want the full story, that book might be a game changer.
Indeed. Because let's face it, your cells do the heavy lifting in keeping you alive. And if they're overstressed by chronic EMF exposure or poor sleeping habits, the rest of your body is going to feel it. So taking care of that cellular foundation is paramount.
Yes. Folks, consider snagging a copy. Meanwhile, do an experiment in your household. Set a new rule. Something like no screens after dinner, or all devices docked by 8 p.m. See how your kids and you adapt. It might spark some creative solutions.
You might even dust off old board games you forgot existed. Then you can have a lively evening of competition and laughter that doesn't require a single glowing screen.
Imagine that. Family bonding time that doesn't revolve around which streaming show to binge next. Sounds quaint, but perhaps that's the best gift we can give our children. Actual human interaction.
And with that, I think we've done our job for today. We've hammered home the reality of screen time overload, the damage to sleep and behavior, the role of EMFs, and the necessity of a detox and better habits. We've dropped a few comedic gems in there for good measure, or maybe comedic lumps of coal, but at least we tried.
Comedic lumps of coal are perfect for the holiday season anyway. But yes, hopefully some folks are shaking their heads in agreement or mild amusement. If we can prevent at least a few children from becoming phone zombies, our work is done.
Here's hoping. And if your child is currently spinning in circles from hyperactivity because they spent all night on social media, maybe this is your sign to regroup. Start small, be consistent, and get creative.
Well put. Let's sign off by reminding everyone that child health is ultimately about balance. We can't eliminate technology entirely, but we can definitely manage it more responsibly. And if we do, we may see a generation that grows up healthier, sharper, and more in tune with the world outside their screens.
And they might actually sleep through the night, which would be a gift for parents worldwide.
Yes, and for the teachers dealing with them in the morning. On that note, thanks for joining us on Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. We hope you found something valuable, or at least entertaining, in our chat.
Tune in next time when we tackle another health topic with a pinch of irony and a dash of digital detox. Until then, keep your phone far, far away from bedtime.
And maybe keep your children even farther. Thanks everyone, and have a healthy, low EMF screen limiting day.
Goodbye, folks.